accessed the podcast of OA. Located deep within Sector 14845 and powered by the Emerald Light of Will, the podcast of OA is your guide to the Green Lantern universe. Hosted by Lantern Myron Rumsey, the podcast of OA begins now.
Hey there, fellow Owens. Thanks for joining us for episode number 183 of the podcast of OA. I'm your co-host, Myron Rumsey, joined by our good friend Phil Bova, and we've got a great episode tonight, a little bit shorter than our last one, but we're going to be talking about Green Lantern Season 2, number 10. So, Phil, we're wrapping up this. This is our next to the last episode for 2020. Are you ready for this year to be over as much as I am?
Yeah, for sure, man. We're going to end on episode 184.
Looking forward to it. Not a lot of Green Lantern news since we recorded last week. In fact, I think you and I recorded 5 days ago. So there's not a whole lot going on out there, but there were a couple of books that came out. We're recording this on the 15th of December. And there was, besides the Green Lantern book, there was a Tales of the Multiverse Crisis on Infinite Earths number 1 that came out today. And there was some, even though this is an alternate Earth, essentially, I believe, this had a big arc for Alan Scott. Now, I haven't picked it up yet because I'm buying these as floppies and my comic shop doesn't open until Wednesday. But I understand you read it. So can you share with the listeners what was going on?
Yeah, so basically what it is, there's this being that's walking the Earth called Sutor or something like that. And he's like this big, gigantic flame creature, whatever the case may be. Anyway, wipes out. The Justice League gets wiped out. I think the only one left is Superman. And then I think Wonder Woman's left. Anyway, long story short, the Justice Society of America steps in. And it's actually, they changed their name on the table. It was a kind of a cool shot of an overview of the table. And it said Justice Society of Earth. And they go and they take on this creature or whatnot. And then, I don't know, I guess I'm going to give away a spoiler. Should I give away a spoiler? It did come out today. I mean, is it fair game or what?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
So, at the very end, after, Johnny Thunderbolt? Is it Johnny Thunderbolts? Yeah, I think that's that guy's name. At the very end, Alan Scott decides to sacrifice himself for the greater good of Earth, and ends up being like a harbinger of the evil that Sutor has, or something like that, the conqueror of worlds or whatnot. So it was really cool because the very last panel, they show like an evil Alan Scott. I think I tweeted it this afternoon if anybody follows me. It was just a cool image of Alan Scott. He's holding some kind of fiery sword or something like that. Anyway, it was a really good issue because Supergirl didn't end up dying. Remember from the original Crisis, she perished. So she ended up dying in this one. She ended up staying alive. And it was just a really neat arc on their already expanded universe with this Metalverse or dark universe that they're expanding on. Kind of like the Flashpoint issue was a lot of fun to read. Because it showed like Eobard Dawn, the Reverse Flash, kind of winning, and it was kind of an alternate take on the dark twisted tale that Flashpoint was. So this one was a lot of fun too. So if anybody's an Alan Scott fan, pick it up and read it. It's good. It's good stuff. He takes the spotlight in most of the issue. And
that was written by Steve Orlando. And so Alan Scott kind of basically becomes the DC Universe version of Silver Surfer, which is kind of cool. You know, I can see it.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. I guess they're doing an issue number 2. I haven't heard anything, but I would assume that they will. But it was a good solid issue. I like these offshoots. You know, I don't like the whole main story that's going on with the metal universe or whatever it is, death metal. But these dark universe ones are pretty cool.
They're kind of like, you know, the What If books that we used to get at Marvel. They used to do. It's kind of almost one of those.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. They really are. They kind of mirror that a lot. Yeah. So cool read. Everybody should pick it up.
So the other news that came out was we're still waiting for DC Comics to release their March solicitations, but they've been kind of trickling out announcements here and there. And they announced today that there's going to be a 6-issue Crime Syndicate miniseries by Andy Schmidt and Kieran McCowan, or McCune, whichever way you pronounce it. Don't want to slaughter the name. But that's going to start in March, and it's going to run for 6 months. And it is basically a new version of the Injustice Society. And it's going to be Earth 3, a new version of Earth 3. And it looks like in this version, John Stewart is going to be Power Ring, their version of John Stewart, the Earth 3 version, which is interesting. And I remember, back during Darkseid War, the Hal Jordan version was killed by Sinestro. And it was his ring, the Volthoom ring, that went to Jessica Cruz. And then the ring itself was destroyed. But I think since then, that's kind of been retconned out. And so it'll be interesting to see. I'm kind of looking forward to it. I always kind of like the Crime Syndicate.
Yeah, they were pretty cool. It's kind of interesting how John Stewart's going to be the lead.
Yeah,
that's 2 books. That's 2 books he's going to be in now.
And I think I said Injustice Society. That's the wrong phrase. It is the Crime Syndicate. I don't want to lead people astray. But at any rate, that's kind of the only Green Lantern news in the last 5 days. But hey, that's 2 things in 5 days. That's not bad. That's not bad.
No, that's pretty cool. This could be a good book.
Yeah. So this is a shorter episode. The last episode, I think, clocked in by the time I got done editing about an hour and a half or so. So this one, I think, will be a little bit shorter. We're just going to talk about the newly released Green Lantern Season 2, number 10. And as always, you've got your Know Your Core segment. And we've got a little bit of listener feedback since the last episode. One thing I missed for the last episode, and then some new feedback. So we've got a little bit to talk about.
All right. Looking forward to it, though. It's like our weekly end of the year podcast race.
Right.
Listen up, Lanterns. It's time you took the oath with Green Lantern John Stewart. In brightest day, in blackest night, don't let the podcast of Oa escape your sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light.
All right, fellow Owens, and welcome back to another Know Your Core segment. And this week, we got an interesting one. I don't even think Myron's even heard of this guy. And he goes by the name of Zevonn Parzzx. Zevonn Parzzx's first appearance was in Green Lantern Corps Volume 2, issue number 27 on October of 2008. The character was created by Peter Tomasi and Luke Ross. And he hails from Space Sector 3590. Zevonn Parzzx was a rookie member of the Green Lantern Corps from the frigid planet Citratana in Space Sector 3590. A sadistic offshoot of the villainous Sinestro Corps began hunting down the GLC's family members, and one of them slaughtered Zevon's mother, Zona Parzzx. Her eyes were removed and sent to Oa as a message for those who dared cross the Sinestro Corps path. And there you have it. Another cool member of the Green Lantern Corps, Zevonn Parzzx, on the Know Your Core segment.
Phil, I didn't know who Zevonn Parzzx was, but holy cow. Now that I look at the picture, I still don't remember it. I'm like, did I sleep through that issue or what? It's crazy.
Well, the best thing about that segment, and I think a lot of listeners would agree, is I don't even know anybody out there who could actually probably name every single Corps member. I mean, if there is somebody out there, which maybe I'm not surprised that there would be, but if there is, I will be majorly impressed, and he should call in or email in or whatever. But even that, it's like me going down this list and just picking them, because I pick them by random. It's like, okay, well, what the heck? We'll just give a rando character, just, get his name out there. And most of these I haven't even heard of, but it's good for me to revisit them too, because a lot of them I'm not familiar with.
Whenever you do those and it's a character that doesn't jump into my mind, it then makes me go back and reread their first appearance and stuff like, oh, now I remember this. So I think it's great. We buy these books and we bag them and we board them and we stick them in boxes, and sometimes we don't go back to them because we're always focused on the new. So it's neat to be reminded of some of the really cool things that we've had in the past.
Yep, I agree. Especially rando characters that were invented and created over the years.
At any rate, we've got a new issue of Green Lantern, Grant Morrison and Liam Sharp. And in this issue, Liam Sharp is doing all the artwork. From pencils to colors to inking, he did all of it himself in this one. And it's interesting because, originally this series was supposed to end, I think, around issue 8. It was supposed to be 12 issues, then it got cut to 8 and then back to 12. And this issue almost feels like the end of the season 2 arc, because this really does kind of wrap up the major plot.
Yeah, it really does. And he really outdid himself on the artwork with this issue too.
Yeah. So, we start out seeing Ultra Woman or Hyper Woman, excuse me. Boy, I'm awful with names tonight. I don't know what it is. But it starts out with her and meeting up with Zundernell and basically wanting Hal and everything he values completely destroyed. And then, as the issue unfolds, it goes back to Earth 11 or Universe 11, where Zundernell, aka the Golden Destroyer, is attacking the planet. And you've got, while all this chaos is going on, you've got 2 versions of Hal and 2 versions of Carol Ferris. I should say Carol Ferris. 2 versions of Star Sapphire kind of going at it. And it's humorous as all get out because of the dynamic between both universes' versions of the characters. It's just humorous as all get out. You get this huge threat going on while these 4 people are kind of arguing over each other.
They really are. They were basically falling over each other because, they each have their own different personalities from what we're used to. I mean, of course, regular Hal and Carol, but then you got the other 2 who are just the totally opposite. They got the coward Hal Jordan, or this guy who's real arrogant, doesn't want any help or whatnot. And then you got both the Ferrises, or both the Star Sapphires for that matter, going at each other. And it wasn't vicious, but it was just you pick up the tone of when they're talking to each other. You're like, oh man, I'm just waiting for a throwdown cat fight to start, but one never does.
No, and it's interesting because the 2 Carols are very similar. I mean, you've got Carol Ferris from our Earth and Carol Jordan from Universe 11, and then you've got Hal Ferris and Hal Jordan from their 2 different respective universes. And it's just interesting to see them juxtaposed against each other. And Hal basically sticks a big box over Zundernell's head with a frowny face on it and keeps Zundernell busy while they're having this little argument back and forth. And Carol's not happy. Our Carol is not happy that Hal's there. And it's interesting that Grant Morrison has kind of reverted Carol back to the way that Star Sapphire was when she first showed up, and that Carol kind of goes away a little bit, or that Carol Ferris's personality kind of fades to the background and the Sapphire character kind of takes over. Whereas, as we've seen in later years, Carol has mastered that influence of the Sapphire and she controls it. This is now a little bit more in control of her, which is interesting. It's interesting to see that again. And I love seeing the dynamic between Carol Jordan and Hal Ferris, the Earth 11 counterparts, because she's kind of almost doting over him, and he's hands off. I don't need your help. You tricked me. You're using me, kind of thing. It's just hysterical to see all of this stuff going on while Zundernell's sitting there trying to get this box off his head
the whole time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It seemed like there's a lot of comedy going on in this particular issue. Like when they're all 4 standing there and the golden guy is crash landing on Earth.
Yeah. and then you see the rest of the Earth 11 Justice League, the female counterparts, kind of having their like, seriously, I'm leaving it all. I'm leaving this for them. I'm all leaving them at it, And in the meantime, Zundernell's coming back, but you just got some of this stuff. I mean, it's interesting that Carol Ferris and Carol Jordan are kind of having this, they're butting heads. And it's interesting when Carol Ferris kind of complains about their version of Hal, and she goes, I made him think you were me to save both your lives. He's an idiot, okay, but he's my idiot. And where do you think you are? You just can't threaten a man like that. It's humorous, and Hal's trying to, stop them from arguing. And then I love the thing where you've got the 2 Carols arguing in the foreground, and you've got Hal Ferris in the background saying, "You think you can just stroll in here and steal my girl, brah? How about you and I settle this?"
I know. And he said "brah" a couple times.
Yeah, he did. It's just funny as all get out. And then basically Zundernell's there, and they decide to hit him with a couple of cymbals over his head and disrupt his frequency so they can go back to arguing again. It kind of takes some of the tension out of this Ultra War, and not that this is necessarily Ultra War. Maybe this is just the precursor to it. But it just, it's got this huge threat, and it's suddenly somehow diminished because we've got 4 people who are fighting with each other. And then we get. What
do you think of that image on there? It looked like Darkseid coming out.
Well, it's interesting because Zundernell, aka the Golden Destroyer, kind of calls forth all these beings from the dark multiverse, and it's really kind of cool because you see a version of what looks like Parallax, the entity, and you see what looks like a version of Guy Gardner with a Sinestro ring on, and you see a Martian Manhunter, and then you see this Darkseid that's almost like Darkseid meets Thanos with all the different rings on his hand. Yeah. And then this really cool ring with a skull face on it, and then Richard Nixon is some kind of an Emerald Warrior.
Did you notice that Starro is on Guy Gardner's face?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just really kind of cool. And they're starting to invade, but they haven't quite gotten the different dimensions to phase into each other yet. But they're fighting and stuff. They're trying to distract everything, and one of the Batwoman character gets sliced by one of the characters, and if you look at it, that looks like Alan Scott. In fact, it looks like the Alan Scott.
Which page you on?
The next one where you see Darkseid coming through, and House at the top of the page, he's got his ring focused at the Darkseid character, and then there's that little offset panel below where it says he cut me. And it says the bright things fear the dark. And doesn't that look like the Alan Scott that is in that issue that came out today?
It does. And not only that, that sounds a lot like his quote, his oath.
Yeah. So I kind of wonder if it was kind of a neat little crossover that they pulled that in.
That'd be interesting to ask some guys. I wonder if they did that on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. And then there's a spot where, some of the lanterns of the multiversal lanterns are showing up, and Hal Ferris looks up and sees Ugo that has Hal on the surface of the planet, and he goes, "Look up in the sky, a whole planet with me on it."
God. So I guess Ugo would be their equivalent to Mogo, right?
Yeah. He's that. He was in an old issue of Green Lantern, and they've been reusing him and actually gave him a name. But then I love the power play that the 2 Star Sapphires realize, this being is hunting down all these different versions of Green Lantern and Star Sapphire. It's Love and Will. Maybe, we've got an idea. Maybe there's a personality at play. And so they try to manipulate Zundernell and get him out from underneath the control of being the Golden Destroyer. And he decides to self-destruct.
Zundernell doesn't strike me as a formidable foe.
No, it's almost, I felt a little bit, I don't want to say let down, but I was led to believe this is going to be some huge thing, and he isn't, which makes me think this isn't really the end of the Ultra War thing, that this is just a distraction, and that the biggest stuff is yet to come. But then you see some more of the multiversal lanterns show up, and you see the stoner dude and those guys all show up, and then Len, he's the version of Green Lantern that Stan Lee created. He attacks Zundernell and kind of undoes what they were doing, and so he's gonna detonate himself. And Hal's like, we got to get him off planet. Makes a big rocket, launches him to Ugo. And then Hal lands on Ugo and shrinks Zundernell down to a subatomic particle so that when he blows up in this massive explosion, it's more of a poof.
I like what he said. Dude, we just got here, cavalry style, and already so much hostility. Bummer.
it's just
that lantern cracks me up.
It's just a wacky issue. And I know we're talking Morrison, but again, this is pretty straightforward stuff when you get right down to it. All of these pieces have been put into play during the run. There's no surprises really here. I think maybe the only surprise is how minor of a threat Zevonn turns out to be.
Which doesn't look very, very threatening.
No, when he blows up, there's this little mushroom cloud about the size of Hal's big toe.
I know. And it's funny because the digital copy, you can zoom in on those images. They kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller. I am the toy of children. I am the least of them.
And then the next part is kind of interesting, where you have Hal and Carol Jordan interacting, and you can almost see some romantic tension between the two. And then our version of Carol shows up, and doesn't exactly go well there. But
no, it's late for a business meeting.
Yeah. So she goes off kind of in a huff, and then Hal's got to go back to Cranaltine because we've still got the trial of Hyperman to wrap up. And so they wrap up the trial of Hyperman here, and things don't necessarily go as planned. And Trilla True makes a token appearance, and she basically has the undoing, which makes the trial go in the correct way so that justice is served. And then Hyperwoman gets her comeuppance.
Yeah, here she comes. What a cool looking Hyperwoman too. I like how he draws her.
Yeah. And she gets taken down, and basically they cut to the wedding. But I love, before they cut to the wedding, there's a scene between Hal and Trilla True kind of off in the background. And they basically talk about Hyperman being addicted to drugs, essentially. And Hal goes, I like that you have these adventures on your own. And she goes, yeah, when I'm not just a walking in your epic life, I actually do stuff, which I thought was just a funny moment. And then she goes, hey, at least she'll get her wedding. You said it yourself, they can't cancel it now. And then we jump to the wedding. And boy, does that not go well.
No, it doesn't go well at all. And look at that whole spread page. Look at the layout.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
I mean, my gosh, man, he breaks the mold for a panel layout, and he just changes it every time that he draws an issue.
I love how he used the Hyper Family logo for some of the panels.
Yeah, that's really cool looking.
Just neat stuff. But the wedding does not go quite the way they were about to go, and it looks like the war is not going to be stopped, and so on. And then it kind of ends it, and then we get this little denouement where Hal goes to Earth and has this conversation with Carol Ferris. And boy, what a neat, I don't want to say a spin on their relationship, because it's not hugely different than what we've seen in the past. It's always been a case of, either Hal is ready to be serious about it and Carol's not, or Carol wants to be serious about it and Hal doesn't. And this fits right into that whole plan. But Hal talks about, he wants to settle down with her, but he doesn't want to settle on Earth, which is an interesting thought, and I think for Hal, he sees a lot about what's going on Earth, and he sees it so much better in some other planets. And I don't think he wants to be burdened by his Earth life.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of over it.
Yeah,
yeah. He goes back and sets foot every once in a while, but that's just in small little things. But like, you're right. I mean, in this last couple of pages, I thought was a really cool homage to their romantic interlude.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was the same stuff, like you said. I mean, like Hal Jordan again is left at the end, and they're going their own separate ways and doing their own separate things.
Yeah, I mean, Hal's even talking about raising children.
I know, man. Your Hal's ready to settle down. Been through a lot.
Yeah, and again, this is it's not a different version of Hal. It's just, this is another aspect of the character. Definitely not cardboard. Where you see the dynamic between him and Carol, and it's another one of those phases. These are to say star-crossed lovers would be accurate. They're two people who are never in the same place emotionally at the same time where they need to meet to make it work. And they both realize that they both are so committed to the lives that they have that they can't give 100% of themselves to the other person. And they love the other person so much that they would rather not make a promise that they can't live up to and hurt that person, even though it's going to hurt them not to be with them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Very cool.
And then that last shot of Green Lantern flying over Earth.
Yeah, and then I love how Liam put the Earth in the center of the Green Lantern logo that he's got there too.
Yeah, that's really neat looking.
And
that'd be a good poster.
Yeah, it would be a good poster, and that's going to kick us into the final 2 issues. And it even says the epic conclusion begins in Contest of Crowns. So it'll be interesting to see where this goes next. You could certainly look at the solicitations and kind of see what's happening, but at the same time, it's interesting to think about just where it's going to go. I mean, we're not going to see another issue of this until February.
I know, that makes me sad.
Yeah, and this, it looks like if you look at the solicitations. Let me read it. Hal Jordan's future as a Green Lantern is threatened when the Young Guardians' plans to restructure the Corps move into high gear. What's it got to do but take a vacation? But when Jordan arrives on the swords and sorcery world of Alphamora for some R&R, he comes face to face with the biggest threat the universe has ever known, and a coalition of foes determined to bring his career and his story to an apocalyptic end. So interesting. And the cover shows a very sword and sorcery Hal with a flag, and he's got the long hair and stuff. Interesting stuff. So it looks like we're kind of getting away from the whole Ultra War thing. So I think that was the end of the Ultra War, which is kind of, I don't want to say a letdown, but very anticlimactic.
Yeah, it wasn't the kind of war I thought we'd see. It just seemed kind of tame.
Yeah, exactly. It just kind of seemed, bleak and it's over, kind of thing. But I really enjoyed the issue nonetheless. Other than that, maybe that piece of it, I thought it was a lot of fun. Just reading the character dynamics, that to me was more interesting than the Ultra War.
Well, and I just just Liam Sharp's visuals. I mean, every issue he just continues to change his brand, and I mean, he doesn't have one distinct style. I mean, he's got a multitude of styles that he puts together and he intertwines, and it's like the guy does so good at what he does with his artwork. I mean, it's just like I said, each one it gets better and better and better.
Yeah, I like how he does different homages and different styles. It morphs. He challenges himself, which I really respect as an artist. For some people, art is subjective, and some people love it, and some people maybe not quite as much. But I've enjoyed how the books have had different looks. I mean, this is almost not just an exploration of Green Lantern, but an exploration of comic book history, because you do see different periods of things being reflected. And we had the Silver Age a couple issues ago, and we had that one issue that was very reminiscent of horror comics and very Hildebrandt like artwork, and the sword and sorcery stuff. And it's a journey through not just the Green Lantern universe, but the comic book universe. Right.
I mean, the guy's an artist, man. I wonder what he's going to be working on next. Did he ever say, or did any of the solicits come up?
He has not said exactly what he's working on. I know he's working on some stuff of his own. I know he's been writing. He's working on a book, I believe, a book, not an art book, but a writing book. But I have not heard whether he has any DC projects lined up or not.
Okay. Man, I'm going to hate to see him off of here.
I'm going to kind of hate seeing this book gone, but we'll see where it takes us. We haven't gotten the March solicitations yet, and some of the books that are going to be coming out may not be coming out until April, because we heard that the Green Lantern book was originally March, and now it's April. So we might have to wait a month or so before we know what's going on. And until now, all it's left up to is speculation at this point. because we've only really heard one announcement. You and I talked last episode. That's one of the things that we feel kind of, I don't want to say dejected about, but let down by the fact that DC's just trickling little bits of information out there, which, for people that are concerned about where this is going and want to know where's their favorite character going to land, and I'm not talking just Green Lantern, I'm talking just characters in general. Are we going to see anything with Green Arrow? What about Black Canary? Or, the Hawkman book just ended. Is Hawkman going to show up someplace? People, they have some anxiety about characters that they're emotionally invested in, and they want to know what's going to happen to them.
Well, yeah, because, and then, that's money that they spend. It's like us with Green Lantern, It's money that we spend on the franchise and stuff. And I think a lot of times, and I've said this before about DC's PR, I just don't think that they're engaged with their public as much as they should be or can be. But I don't know. I guess that's just me. Now we got 2 Jon Stewart appearances that we're gonna start seeing him in, and I'm cool with it. Don't get me wrong, but on the same vein, I want to see the other guys. I want to see Hal Jordan. I want to see Kyle Rayner. I want to see Guy Gardner. I want to see the rest of them. And I want to be sad if a lot of what these writers do when they're going into next year that half these characters aren't going to appear in any titles anymore.
Right.
It's going to be disappointing.
We don't know whether the Green Lantern book is going to be an ensemble book. I get the impression that it might be, at least some of the characters, besides just John. I think it's going to be multiple characters, but we'll see where it all goes. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
time will tell next year, 2021.
That's right. So let's take a quick pause, and we've just got a couple little bits of listener feedback. So we'll be back in just a moment.
I say there, boy. Sir? Yes, you. Mr. Scrooge? What day is it? Why, it's New Comic Book Day today, sir. New comic... I haven't missed it. I'm not too late. Happy day. Timmy. Sir? Happy New Comic Book Day. Happy New Comic Book Day to you, sir. Happy New Comic Book Day to us all. Happy New Comic Book Day to us all. Happy New Comic Book Day, everyone.
Green Lantern Myron and Green Lantern Phil, you have incoming transmissions. Would you like me to play them?
Well, thank you, Power Ring. Go ahead and play the first transmission, please.
The first message is from Shadow the Batman. He's commenting on episode 181. Transmission playing in 3, 2, 1.
Good show, folks. I will say I do like the beginning of the new 52 John stuff pre-Third Army. I thought Jeff was doing a great job at focusing on smaller scale stories and character-focused stuff and cool themes. But then Third Army kinda gets in the way of that but still works. Also, for a different Christmas special, there is the Hal Jordan Spectre story where he met Santa, so there's that.
Hey, thank you, Shadow Batman, for the comment, and that came from YouTube. It's interesting. I felt the same thing. I thought that John's was really good up till Third Army. I think Third Army was really kind of where he kind of lost his way a little bit. And I love some of the smaller scale stories, as you said, and some of the character-focused stuff. But when we got to Third Army, yeah, it kind of felt like maybe Jeff was running out of ideas, and how do you top something when you have the success that you have with like Green Lantern Rebirth and then Sinestro Corps and Blackest Night? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, it's a tough bar to reach.
yeah, it is. You feel like you're a musician who's just written the world's greatest song, and now you got to come up with another album. So what do you do at that point?
That's got to be tough for any writer to come up with something else.
Yeah,
I don't know where it would come from. I mean, I'd agree with him that the Third Army stuff didn't really appeal to me that much. I liked a lot of the New 52 stuff. I still like it for Green Lantern's sake, anyway. But everybody's going to have their tier stories that they always remember the most. And then everybody has their crucial moment stories like Blackest Night or Rebirth. Those are big monumental stories. But then everybody just changes a little bit when it comes to the New 52 stuff. Some people like it, some people don't. It's a catch-22. I generally enjoyed it. I liked his Renegade run. I thought that was one of my favorites from the New 52 era. I enjoyed that thoroughly. I liked his costume. I thought he was cool. Third Army was okay. I mean, it didn't hit me like some of the other stuff did, but it was all right. But
yeah,
I do miss Jeff Johns writing Green Lantern, but I think I miss that particular frame and time span of Jeff Johns writing Green Lantern. I don't know if I'd want him writing Green Lantern anymore.
Right. It's the, that old saying, you can't go home again. But I miss the time when we had, at one point, I think we had either 4 or 6 books throughout that time span, which was just, kind of unheard of for Green Lantern as a brand to have that many books. And as far as Third Army goes, it was okay, but I guess I've never been a big fan of the Guardians as villains. I've always felt like the Guardians were best used when they're the altruistic beings who are slightly out of touch with humanity, air quote humanity, because they're so socially isolated and they've shut off their emotions that they can't relate to the value of human values. They can't relate to that. And to me, that was always more interesting. But and thanks also for the pointing out the Spectre issue with Spectre number 12, when Hal Jordan was the Spectre, the JMD Matthias run. And so Phil and I talked about it, and we're going to be including that in our next episode. So thank you for that. So Power Ring, go ahead and play us the next transmission.
The second and final message is from the Emerald Enthusiast. He is commenting on episodes 181 and 182. Transmission commencing in 3, 2, 1.
Congratulations on the book credit, Myron. For collectors, Nod Keloy is one of the alternate heads on the 13-inch Green Lantern Corp figures from DC Direct. Main figure is Hal Jordan, and he's featured in the DC Classics line if anyone wants a figure of him. Thumbs up just for the Bantha Pooty reference.
All right, Power Ring, thank you. And this is from Emerald Enthusiast on YouTube. He gives you mad cred for the book credit, Myron, which, of course, can expect that from Donnie. Great guy, It does great reviews and stuff of a lot of like toys and collection and collectibles. And he pointed out one of the alternate heads on the Not Keloy is a Not Keloy head of the Green Lantern Corps figure from DC Direct. And I looked at the figure. It's pretty cool. I wish I could afford to buy it.
There's a neat version of that character, too, from the movie where he looks very, very amphibian-like, very fishy. He's even got flippers. There's no legs or anything. It was a cool-looking character from the movie. That the redesign was really alien, whereas the comic book version is very basically a humanoid with a fish head and a fishbowl over his head.
Gotcha. And of course, he gives you cred for your Bantha Poodoo. Yeah, I like Donnie.
Yeah, Donnie's a good guy. I'm going to put a link to his YouTube channel in the show notes because he does do some neat reviews of current and older collectibles, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So
he's a good guy.
Yeah, very good. So Power Ring, why don't you go ahead and remind everybody what they can do to be a part of the show.
You can become a part of the show by leaving a message up to 1 minute long on our voicemail line. Call us at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can also email us at podcast@blogofoa.com. We'd love to hear from you.
All right, Myron, episode 183 in the books, and it looks like next week we got the special episode.
Yep, so this next episode is going to be our special holiday episode, and we're going to talk about 3 different books, 3 different retro reviews of Christmas past, essentially. And we're going to be talking about Green Lantern Mosaic number 9, Green Lantern Volume 2 number 36. Actually, no, it's not Volume 2, it's Volume 3, number 36, and the Spectre number 12. And we might have a surprise. I've been hearing my Power Ring muttering at night, trying to work through some poetry and some verse. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a good time. Good holiday episode. Be our last episode of the year, and we get to kick 2020 and it's you-know-what on the way out.
Good choice of words. Yeah, so we
think everybody's done with this year, man.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be back next week. We will try to record early in the week so that I can edit it and get it released on Christmas Eve. How would that be?
Yeah, that'd be cool. Yeah,
cool.
That'd be cool. Good times.
All right, my friends, thank you again for joining us, making us a part of your fandom. As always, treat each other well, be safe out there, keep your power ring charged, and make every day your brightest day. The Podcast of OA is the official podcast of the blog of OA and a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. Share your comments and questions by calling the show's voicemail line at 406-POD-OA. That's 406-763-6362. You can send your emails to podcast@blogofoa.com. You can also find the Blog of OA and the Podcast of OA on Twitter and Facebook. Green Lantern and other related characters are the copyrighted property of DC Comics Incorporated and are used without permission. The Blog of OA and the Podcast of OA are fan productions and do not claim any ownership over the Green Lantern or any other copyrighted properties.